years. Thank you, Shani. For over 15 years, Tony has been working with clients all over the world to help grow their businesses through sales, and I love this, and human behavior. His track record boasts multiple Global 500 and Fortune 500 companies, as well as over 10,000 human behavior assessments administered around the world. He is a human behavior specialist, certified in EQ, in DISC, in driving forces, and I hope I'm saying this word right, axiology, and he uses these skills to achieve massive results for his clients. In short, Tony is a master at uncovering the how, will, and why people do what they do. To help us understand how he does that and to give us some golden nuggets for our business, everybody, please let's welcome Tony.
I'm gonna imagine everyone's like screaming and cheering, and they're like, they can't believe that they're actually meeting me. Yeah, thank you, Gail. I appreciate it. Hi, everybody. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Rule number one in selling is to lower expectations so you have the opportunity to exceed them. So strike one, Marissa. I'm just messing around. So look, I took a couple notes as you were talking because I thought you had a couple really good points. And if I may, I want to share a couple of components because I was thinking about the people that we have on the meeting in relation to what you just spoke about. As we're getting into 2022 and change and what you were talking about, especially facilitating your meeting next week, it's all connected to human behavior and the way people, when you think about changing behavior and changing where you are from where you want to go, people will very rarely make a change unless the pain of staying where they are outweighs the pain of making some sort of change. And if you think about anything in life, that's what it really comes down to, whether it's you want to lose weight. Well, you probably should have been losing weight for the last 15 years, but you go to the doctor, get a bad checkup. They tell you that you have pre-diabetes, and now you want to make a change because the fear or pain of that is now in your face. So we think about these concepts of actually helping, futurize and get people to change that way. But the other component of that is, it's one of the basic laws of human behavior. People only care about what impacts them personally. And many times when we talk about change and trying to move people, we are focused on ourselves 80-20, as opposed to focusing on the people 80%. And that's difficult to do. That's what makes ownership and leadership and management difficult, because you have multiple people that you're working with. And so a one-size approach doesn't work unless you've really created what I would call a benchmark, or hiring the same way each time. That way you have the same kind of people, and then a blanket approach can work. But most of us don't do that. So we have to have an individual approach, and we have to understand individuals because our goals are attached to their goals and their values. And we need to understand what that is. If it's okay if I let people in, I see them here, since I'm the host, I'll just let people in. So Marissa also talked about tools and systems she's going to mention in next week's program. So when you think of leadership, I look at it both ways. It's tools and systems are under what you call effective management, and then human behavior is what's under effective leadership. If what you are doing doesn't involve people, then it's management, processes, tools, efficiency. But if it comes to people, that's filed under leadership, which is way more what we call right brain emotional, as opposed to left brain logical. So as I evaluate my past day or week or month, and you ask yourself, how much of my time was spent managing people or leading people, or managing processes or leading process? The reality is you manage tools and systems and you lead people. So your own self-evaluation needs to say, well, which one is it? Because at the end of the day, I don't know what attrition rates are or wherever you are around the world, but I know here in the United States, it's not great. People are leaving companies like crazy, and people quit people. They don't quit companies. And that's what we have to understand. And then lastly, just because of we talked about that people component in sales. I love the sales questions. Do you love sales? Do you hate sales? Well, I love the fact that most of the people in this virtual room love sales. I hope so, because that's the lifeblood of your business. And again, you probably got to where you are is because you were good at selling what you do and you're passionate about it. The question is, do we hire people that love sales? And then do we reward people who love sales? And so as you look into your next year, I want you to consider a couple things. How do I identify people who love sales? Do I reward people who love sales? That's usually with commission, bonus structure, or recognition. And do I make sure that I'm consistent with rewarding behavior that I want repeated, punishing behavior I don't want repeated, but championing effort in the meantime? And then when you look at goals that are for, whether it's quarterly goals that you put in front of people where they can win a trip or win a gift card, there's something about motivation that you really need to understand. I'm going to put the equation in the chat box because it's really simple. It's value times the expectation that I can receive the reward. That equals, come on, there we go, motivation. So I'll give you an example. So the value of a reward could be, I get to go on a trip to Hawaii, right? If I'm the top salesperson in the company, I get a trip with my spouse to Hawaii. But if that's high value, but if I've never even come close, and there's always someone who's at the top, they've been around for 15 years, they've got a book of business that's 10x what I have, my expectation of that reward is low. So my motivation then becomes low, right? Now, let's flip it around. That Hawaii trip, if it's in the first 2 weeks of November and you are offering it to me, there's only one place I want to be the first 2 weeks of November. That's in the woods, because I'm a sportsman. I hunt in the first 2 weeks of November, and that's the best time to be in the woods. It's cold, there's a lot. And so the value of that trip now goes down, even though I expect I could get it. So you need to understand what people value, and do I have multiple rewards based on people's, where they are and their expectation to get it. So you may want to stagger rewards for people who are new, most improved, longest tenure, best rate of, increase. So these multiple rewards will give you multiple results. All right. So you can give me like a aha or a thumbs up in the chat if that's hitting home with you. That was just off the cuff as I was listening to Marissa. All right, cool. And now I'm going to share my screen and just give you some components of human behavior that have really impacted my clients and myself. My background is, in the last 15 years, most of it's been in high-level corporate selling, but a lot of these strategies were built in a B2C business model, from whether selling swimming pools or, I've had some clients that sell coffee. So a lot of these strategies I'm going to go into, they work in multiple industries because it's front end loaded on human behavior. And when we talk, whether it's B2C, business to consumer or business to business, no matter what you're talking about, it's people. And understanding people and putting science behind understanding people, now it gives me the ability to predict how people can make decisions. And if I can predict it, then I can prepare for it. Most of the time, when I enter into an organization and try and change their sales behavior, most people are only selling one way. It's the way they've always done it, the way that's always made them successful. And by just having some self-awareness that human behavior can impact persuasion so dynamically is the first step. And when we can actually be looking for what we haven't been looking for, now we can change how we communicate with our buyers. So let me give you a couple reasons why people make decisions. Here's just a list that as I was brain dumping why people really make decisions, here's what I came up. Pain avoidance, right? I want to avoid something. And by the way, that's number one for a reason. Most people will move mountains to avoid pain. Just ask anybody who's had a toothache that could have been fixed by going to the dentist and they put it off for 5 years and now it's a root canal, right? Gain of pleasure, right? I want to get something. Emotion, logic. We've heard that most people buy on emotion, then justify with logic, which is true. But there's one very specific buyer type that's very good at removing all emotion from decisions where it's just logical. Some people only care about results, not the details. Some people have an ego when they buy. Some people are buying for their family and some are buying out of fear. So when we're looking for reasons that people make a decision, are these some of the things that my antennas are up and beginning to look for? Because if I can do this early, instead of thinking about what I'm pitching or what I'm selling, and then I'm focused on the other person, how do they think? Why are they doing what they do? So when I then deliver my solution, I can create it in a framework that matches up with how they make a decision. They're more likely to agree with what we are offering. So let's get into that a little bit. When we think about successful selling, what it truly is it lies in our ability to uncover what motivates each buyer and then being able to match that solution to the buyer's motivation. So if they're pain avoidance, I can frame a solution to avoid a problem. If they want to get something, I can frame my service that they can gain something. If it's about emotion, I can get them to emotionally start to picture themselves experiencing what I do. So there's all these elements that I'm looking for in my, when I start to talk about the selling conversation, most people think that I'm talking about the close, the end, when you ask for the piece of the business, when in fact, most of the selling is done in the first 30 minutes, maybe even the first 5 minutes when it comes to human behavior, because there's so many elements that go into whether someone's going to trust and buy from you that aren't the actual service. And I want you to think about this, everybody. If you have in your geographical area competition, now I will admit that probably in your business, there's obviously really high level and really low level competition. But even just take the top 2 or 3 people in that could be in your market. They have great solutions. They have great services. So many times pitching the best solution or service is something that would drive us down to what we would consider a commodity, as opposed to identifying their buying behavior and then matching our superior service. And if you are the best in your market, that's the cherry on top. So when we think about human behavior and the components that go into human behavior, now I look at 2 major components. This isn't the end all be all, but what I'm looking for when I'm selling, the 2 major components that truly drive human behavior: the how. All right. That would include how people choose to communicate. And I use the term choose lightly because, people are born essentially with the way they want to communicate, and then they cement that communication style by the time they're 13 years old. If you think about whether you have kids, you start to get their communication style pretty quickly as a parent. And yourself, as you think about how you've always chosen to communicate, it probably hasn't changed all that much since you were a young person. So how they choose to communicate, how they choose to learn and retain information. So when we give them the information, is it lined up with the best way they prefer to do that? And then how they evaluate and make decisions. So that's the how component. It doesn't factor in whether they're good people or bad people, whether they have certain, past experiences emotionally. This is just the how. And the reason I separate these two out is because I can tend to see and identify through speaking with someone what the how is. But the other component that's really going to drive decisions and persuasion in your business is the why. Why do people do what they do? And that's a little bit more difficult because I cannot see your why. If I was given 5 minutes to speak with each one of you, I could probably figure out your how in that 5 minutes. And you, me, right? It doesn't take someone to have a PhD to understand that I have a high rate of speech. I have pretty good verbal skills, and I speak with my hands. So and there's some identifications that then I can lead you down on how to sell me. But why I do things is a little bit more in here. So we have to have a strategy that derives what that is. And I'll share with you how we do that here in a moment. But other components of why they do what they do, why they decide to change a behavior. Is there something that brought them in here? Is there something that's happened that was what we may call a triggering event that brought them in to speak with us? Why are they here? Did they see something that they want to make sure they avoid or they want to get? People have their own why. I need to be able to derive that from my buyers. And at the end of the day, what is it that motivates somebody? What is it that motivates you? And if you think about that question, in order to get that answer, what do I need from the person that I'm speaking to give them that information? The answer is trust. Now, I'm going to actually tell you what motivates me personally. Before we go down that road, I need to trust you. So again, front-end loading our sales strategy around gaining trust is a key component of doing that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the how. What's it involve? Well, you're going to hear me use this term DISC. It stands for, well, it's the basic language of human behavior. And it's the basic language that's very observable. We're going to go into that a little bit more as we go through this. There's 4 dominant profiles that we can see. Almost to the second that someone walks into the door, or we begin to speak to them, my brain can begin to determine what profile you are. And as we go through those profiles, I want all of you to be considering what you think yours would be characterized as, because that's how you sell. And I want you to think about this. If there's only 4, right? Let's just take 4. Now there's combinations, but 4 dominant profiles on how people buy and communicate. And you have one of those. And that's how you sell. The only time you are 100% naturally in rapport with the person you're talking to is 25% of the time. That's a scary thought, isn't it? And so I don't want to eliminate 75% of my possible buyers just on something that I could very simply change because I'm now looking for it. There's other components, modalities, which means, well, how do people take in information? Are they auditory learners? Are they kinesthetic learners, meaning they take in and retain information by what they feel? Are they visual, by what they see? And am I looking for things that can give me clues into what that is? Meaning, if I'm paying attention to what this could be, someone says, I hear what you're saying. Clear as a bell. Those kind of individuals are giving me clues that they're auditory learners. Kinesthetic. I feel your pain. I understand. I need to get in there and feel it and touch it. I was just on a call yesterday with someone that said that exact words. Tony, what would best help me decide on you is if I can actually get in there and kind of put my brain around it and see it and touch it and experience it. That's kinesthetic. Visual. People who respond by what they see. These individuals may say things like, I see what you mean, or I see what you're saying. I see the picture. I got a clear picture of that. They tend to look up in the sky when they're answering a question as if the words are up there in the sky. So visual. And how this works in your selling business is you just start putting down A, K, or V in your notes as you're talking to somebody. So when I'm ready to ask them to buy, the way I get them to visualize my service, I can do that by touching how they're going to do that. So I used to sell swimming pools. I told you this worked in the swimming pool business because I used to sell swimming pools. This was very clear when I sold swimming pools. If someone was an auditory buyer, it was very easy. Look, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, when you come home from a long day of work and you open your car door and the first thing you hear are kids playing in your backyard, having a great time, they're splashing around, you know that you've made a wonderful decision. Let's get started. Kinesthetic. So when you come home from a long day of work and you kick off your shoes and you plunge your feet into the water and all that just troubles wash away from the day, you know you've done the right thing. Let's get started. Kinesthetic. Visual. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. So when you come home from a long day of work and the first thing you see are some extra bikes in your driveway because the neighbor's kids are in your backyard, but you know your kids are in the backyard as well. They're not down the street, and you get to see your whole family having such a wonderful time. You know you've made the right decision. Visual. Same pool, same price, different way that they're going to visualize what we do. And then what criteria are they going to choose for the care you give or whatever result that a retail would give them, whatever you actually sell from a retail standpoint? What criteria did they use to choose what you're offering them? And too many times we focus on what they want and not how they're going to choose who gives it to them. Meaning high service. Do I trust you? How long have you been in business? Where do they rank those things in price? Where do they rank that stuff in criteria? Not only the what you do to solve their problems. So as I look at the how component, these are some of the things that I'm looking at to make sure I say, okay, now I know how to frame my pitch, my communication style, my close, to anticipate what objections they might have. These are all the things that I'm using to predict my outcomes. Come on, there we go. Now let's move over to the why. Pain avoidance or gain of pleasure. That is a massive reason why people make a decision. The majority of the world makes decisions for pain avoidance. But I still want to know. And the way to understand what that is very, very simple. In the conversation, all you have to do is ask, what benefit do you see by, and then whatever you're selling, doing, kind of a retainer model for care, or having this product, or having accountability for therapy, or skincare, or whatever it is, right? That answer will give you what their primary motivation is. They say, what benefit would you, and I'm, by the way, you could tell I'm not a spa person, even though if my wife was here, she'd smack me upside the head because she used to own a massage therapy practice. So what benefit do you see by having someone hold you accountable and coming in for massage therapy once a month? Well, the pain avoidance answer would be, well, I might be able to stop living with pain in my shoulder because I sit at a desk all day. Or, when my kid asks me to come play and it wants me to throw the football around in the yard, I don't feel pain, everything. That's pain avoidance. Gain would be, well, it'll allow me to finally maybe get into that jujitsu class that I've always wanted to get into, or to allow me to actually get back into sailing. I know I'm throwing out a bunch of, but whatever that answer is, gives you what their primary motivation is. And again, all I do is in my notebook, I just put a plus or a minus. If they're pain avoidance, minus. If they're gain, plus. So all I have in my notebook that and you could do this as you're having a conversation with somebody, because when you take notes and you understand people, they really feel like you're understanding what it takes for them to be cared for. And I just put that in my notes. There's another component, what we call, or what I call, dominant buying motives. That is the emotional reason for making a change. How do I uncover that? Sometimes that's a little bit deeper. Sometimes we need some real trust in order to get that information. But what I'm looking for is not only decisions made on price or you know, the what components, but what's the real emotional reason for making a change? It's the difference between going to the doctor and getting diagnosed with an illness. That would be the first component, to then getting the medicine to make me feel better. But I'm taking the medicine so that I can go on my trip next month. That's the dominant buying motive that a lot of us miss our component. I get, and this isn't a vaccine conversation, but anyone who's gotten a vaccine didn't do it because they wanted to get a needle in their arm and not get sick. They do it for some sort of emotional reason on the back end, and vice versa. Right? So all these decisions are driven by some emotional reason for making a change. Our job is to uncover that. And I'll give you a tool on how to do that here in a moment. And we do that with what we call dream fulfillment, that visualization of using your service to fulfill that dominant buying motive. That can be with stories, vignettes, understanding how, the combination of how they buy and that dominant buying motive, right? Dominant buying motives could be, you take me, for example, I'm almost 40. If I had another kid, I go, man, I better start taking care of my body so I can actually go in the backyard and play. That would be a dominant buying motive. And our job is to uncover that. So let's talk a little bit about this, because this is going to be a major component. I encourage all of you to begin to uncover a little bit more about what this is. Now, a lot of you may have heard of personality, assessments or whatever the case is, but when DISC is actually something that's in the public domain. Its first works were from 1928, and it's been chopped up in a different, a whole lot of ways. You might have seen blue, red, yellow, green. You might have seen, eagle, bear, donkey, snake. I made that one up, but it could be, there's all kinds of different codes, but what it's identifying is actually 4 dominant profiles, and it's all DISC, but very rarely do people use it to help them sell better. And that's how I use it. I use it for hiring. It's a small component of hiring. I use it for communicating with teams, and I use it for helping my team then sell more. And so, as all of you said, I want my team to be able to sell more. This would be the first thing that I would tackle. I would say, identify which one of these you are, and then what you need to change in every one of your encounters and conversations based on what you see from somebody. So let's talk about DISC, the how. D stands for dominant. These are risk takers, but they're identified by a couple of these characteristics. They're very direct. They have results-oriented conversations. And the key word is they are concerned with what? What's in it for me? Right? So the fuzzy warm-ups, asking them about the weather, is all just fat up front that they want to trim out of that conversation. The result they wanted from the experience was 5 minutes ago. So going into a lot of detail about the process or products is in fact driving that person crazy when they say, okay, I do it, what's the result? If I do it tomorrow, what is the ROI for me personally? And as you think about these, you can probably start to uncover, oh, I know what those people look like. They're not very emotional. They're more task-oriented individuals. So we think about, and we call that the high D personality, but a lot of them end up, I don't know how many high Ds we have on this call, but some of them end up in leadership positions as owners of businesses because they tend to be some risk takers. The other one, I, influencer. This is where you're going to find a lot of salespeople. Good verbal skills, friendly, relationship oriented, right? Able to raise the excitement level. Now, I don't know if that's the case with all of your businesses, because some people could come up through the spa industry and be more of the next one, which we're going to talk about. But this is what I was talking about. Do we hire salespeople versus therapists? And this is a challenge that all of you really have, and I wish I could tell you how to solve it. Getting people who are predisposed to being in service and care and take care of people's bodies, like my wife, massage therapy, they don't tend to be the same person. So I would encourage all of you to maybe consider, do I separate sales and therapy? It's just a thought. I'm not asking any of you to be overstaffed, but what is challenging is, how do I get people who don't have a natural propensity to sell? And that may come into their why. What's their value system? But a lot of high I's you find have good verbal skills. I would be considered a very high I, good speaking skills, relationship skills, and therefore tend to be in that high percentile selling. So when you see an individual like this, right, friendly, you want to make friends quickly. Things need to be fun. So big smile, a lot of hand gestures, right? Focus on ego. They're always thinking about, how am I going to look? What are my friends going to think about me? What are my conversations going to be like in my social circle? These are the people that, if you raise the emotion level of that experience, you can get them to buy quickly. This is very much the high I is the shoot first, ask questions later. I'll figure out how to pay the bill later. You got me excited about it. I'll figure it out. They are concerned with who else is doing what you're asking me to do. Right? So a lot of influential references, a lot of talking about, hey, the last 10 people that were in your situation did this, because they want to be in the club for one component of it. They like being in the cool kids club. And the other component is they hate details. So if a lot of people have come to a decision that was you and your spa, your practice, and they say, well, that eliminates me doing a lot of the legwork on how to decide to come to that decision. Well, then if the last 10 people did it, or someone I respect does it, that's good enough for me. So they are concerned with who else is doing it. All right. Both of those, slightly more in control of their environment, a little bit more assertive. You know, if you were thinking Myers-Briggs, they would be extroverted, slightly more extroverted. These next two, slightly more laid back. Introverted is not the right word, because the high S isn't so much introverted, but a little bit more toned down. So a changing rate of speech. Having to change, for me, my hand gestures and how I like to lean forward and talk to people. For the steadiness pattern, I need to slow it down a little bit and allow people to think and be genuinely sincere. You know, the high S personality, I'm modeling the model here. The high S personality is many times making decisions based on their family first. So when we focus on what decision, how this impacts their family, that's what I'm going to work on. And they need to see the process. What's this look like today, tomorrow, the next month? What's the check-in at the quarter look like in 6 months? Where's our evaluation? What's that? How many people do I work with? Who do I work with? That process mapped out for a high S personality is incredibly important. And they're concerned with, how does this work? From now to where I want to be, how does that happen? And then lastly, the C, the cautious personality. Never personal. This is the one that's the hardest for people to understand. Is the high C actually does not factor you into their decision-making process. You're just a window of information. So as we, all the others are trying to be friendly or trustworthy or respected or be a consultant, the C personality is saying, get rid of all that stuff. I'm evaluating my own decision in my own way. You just give me the information. I will evaluate it. They're probably the slowest buyer because their whole world is about removing the emotion from that purchase, making a logical decision, and why it's a low risk decision. So when we sell to a high C, we need to understanding that about a high C personality, knowing that they're going to try and do, somewhat of a pros and cons list about this decision, remove the risk out of this decision. Then I need to create a penalty for waiting to make a decision. That's how you sell a C. You need to frame something for a high C. If you wait, the consequences are this. Whether it's they lose out on a deal, whether we've talked about certain care an ailment they're doing, I can create a whole bunch of penalties for delay. Say it's the winter time, and as we go into the summer, you won't be first in the list to get actually the kind of care you want or the best therapist in the world. Whatever the case is, I have to create some sort of penalty for delay for the high C. So as you think about these four, think about how different those buying behaviors are. And whichever one you are is how you buy and how you sell. But the best part about this is I can see these quickly. Demeanor, the way you dress, the way you talk to me. You ever want to find a high C personality? Invade their 3-foot halo or their 1 meter. There you go. This is my international version code. The 1 meter space. High C's will back up in a heartbeat. The high I's will come in and hug you. There's the difference. So now we're aware of what we see. And so from what to why, and I know we're running out of time, but I just want to give you this last component. Okay. How do I go from what they want, how they communicate, to why they want it? It's very simple. I'm going to leave you with this. I want all of you to think about this. I want you to begin to get your people to ask, what are the top 3 things that are most important to you when it comes to this decision? Whether it's you're trying to sell a subscription service to come in, whether it's some retail, what would be the top 3 criteria that are most important to you? Right? And just let people answer. The second component, what's your definition of that criteria? People will feel more comfortable when they feel that you are absolutely clear that you understand what they need. And too many times people go, well, what are your top 3? Here, let me sell it to you. What are the top 3 things that are important to you? Well, here's how I can help you with that. Actually defining that criteria opens up a more in-depth conversation. And when we then sell what we want to sell, it has higher impact. And then the last component, and why is that important to you personally? The answer to that question is their emotional reason for making that change. And that piece of information is the key to the sales success. When people give you that information, they've given you a gift. They trust you with that gift, whether it's health. My mother just passed away and she was in pain for the last 10 years. I don't want to end up there. I had a doc, right? There's all kinds of, and we don't know what they are. They're personal to people, but most people have never been asked that. But when they give you that information, now the key component of sales has been achieved, which is trust. Then you can tackle respect by telling them how you can solve their problems from an expert level. And then this last piece is the trick, everybody. I shouldn't call it a trick, but it's the key component to increasing your closing averages. Before you sell what you sell after those 3 top questions, you need to ask one more question. If I can show you a path to achieve that goal, are you ready to get started? What you will get is every piece of information you need to help them move forward. People call those objections. They're only objections when they come after you present a solution and a price. If they come up before the solution and the price, it's information. Now I know what the buyer needs to feel comfortable to move forward. So here it is, right? I gave you the how. Here's to go from what they want to why they want it, and then uncovering what it's going to take to win. That's sales in a heartbeat. All right. Since we are up against it, as they say, there you go. Yes. All right. Quick couple questions. Therapists are naturally caregivers. Yes. So, Marissa, that's exactly what I was alluding to, which is going to be, I wish I could solve all of your problems, everybody, but that's the challenge. So the key to overcoming that challenge were a lot of high S's, and we're asking them to do high I and DI behavior. That's hard, right? So there's two options. You hire a DI to only sell. If you've ever had surgery, you know the surgeon's the one that talks to you about the surgery, and then what do? All right, I'll have John or Jane come in and talk to you about the pricing. Does your surgeon ever talk to you about how much it costs? Never. So that's the component that we have to figure out. Either we hire someone who's solely focused on that, or the other piece is we have to find out what really drives each person and attach rewards to their value system. If it's spending more time with their family, I will attach rewards to that, to them achieving sales goals. If it's more money, cool, I'll attach that to more sales goals. If it's having more freedom, right, I'll attach those rewards to their sales goals. Too many times we call it just money or just recognition. And we need to make sure that's the case.
Oops, Tony, can I ask a question? What happens if you've hired wrong? So you are stuck in a business where you as the owner love selling and you're passionate about it, but your team is all traditional S personality. So I know you've given us your two options, but I mean, is it an option to start refreshing and getting new staff in, or?
I take a very specific approach to that. If I've hired them, I do everything in my power, especially with new knowledge, to make them successful. So I call it the 3S rule. First, I look at myself. Am I leading them wrong? Meaning, am I leading them from inappropriately from a dis standpoint, right? How they choose to communicate. And the beauty of that is when we have a different dis profile, it's not personal. It's not me saying I don't like you. It's me saying the way I learn and communicate just is in direct opposition to the way you learn and communicate. It doesn't make us good or bad people. It just is the how. So that's one. I can impact that. Two, I've never understood what their values are. Why do they do what they do? If the perfect picture of success here gets you what is it? And don't just tell me, well, I get to earn a living. Okay, you earn a living so that you can achieve what? And now I use an assessment to do that, but you can do it verbally as well. And then so that's me, myself. Second is, are my systems broken? To have inappropriate systems, are they not able to do what they do best because of some systems I have that are in the way? And then lastly, I look at what I would call the subordinate. Do they need to go and be successful somewhere else? That's how and then the other steadfast rule is if there's other components, like they have low emotional intelligence, either I can coach that up or I don't have time for it. It's typically you hire slow and fire fast.
Okay, that sounds amazing. Does anybody else have any other questions? Here's your moment, everyone. We've only got him for a few minutes longer. Let's sponge off him as much as we can. Any questions, anyone? Type them away. Type them away.
If you have any questions, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to answer any of them later.
Okay. Well, superb. I certainly have loved every single minute, and I feel that I'm the queen and the champion of sales. So thank you, because you've just made me an even better queen and an even better champion. I will be taking all your tips and applying them. I was already shocked the last time you told me that I sell the way that I do, because that's how I am. So that really put me in my place. I thought, what, really? Oh my word. So I did go out and research it a bit more, and obviously you were spot on. So
Cool.
thank you so much for your time. I know that it is super valuable. Thank you for giving up this hour and a little bit to giving us some golden nuggets. And everyone, you can catch the recording. I know I want to watch it a few more times. I couldn't write fast enough, so we can go and watch it. And we'll see you all on Monday. Okay, so all of you, will see you Monday. There's all your comments. Thank you so much. Janelle, you must watch the recording. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Any closing words you want to leave everyone with, Tony?
Selling is not a dirty word. It is the lifeblood of what you do, and your people should not feel that way either. It is what we lack is the ability to gain trust and to guide people to better health, and that's what you do. And so it should never be a dirty word, and that's the culture that it may take time, but you should always foster.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So the S word, we're going to refer to it as the S word, sales. And we feel so much love for it. Okay, everyone, have the best day, depending on where in the world you are, or the best evening for those of us who it's wine time. And thank you once again, Tony. We really appreciate it. And yes, go out there, everyone. Go and sit and do your planners now, today. Don't wait for tomorrow. And let's find ways to adapt how we're selling to become much better at it. Okay, everyone, have the best evening or the best day. Cheers.
Bye,
go out and sell, everyone. Ciao.